Hello. All right, thank you for your patience, my friends. My name is Courtney. I was just explaining that this is our Aquarium Online Academy and that I am joined by my friend Tina. In fact, Tina's the one who helped me resolve that little issue we had in the beginning. So thank you so much to her. Um, like I said, it's our Aquarium Online Academy. We're going to learn today about some of our ocean animal friends. I'm with one of my good friends here. This is my good otter friend. And we're going to talk about some things that me and him have in common. If you want to join in on this conversation, add to it, ask some questions. That is amazing. There you go. That's how you can contact us. It is that text number down there, 562 286 1838. If you have a question, you can text us at that number. Standard text rates do apply. Or if you have a question later on, maybe you're watching this at a later date, or maybe you just want to save all your questions for the end of the program, you can always email us at live@lbaop.org and we'll try to get back to you with answers to your questions. Excellent. So, like I said, today we're talking about some things that me and this cool otter have in common. In fact, right now we are looking at Blue Cavern. This is a kelp forest. This is where otters live. So, if my otter friend lives here and I live on land, it seems like we couldn't have too much in common, could we? Well, we're going to talk about what that is. In fact, me and him are both part of a really cool group of animals called mammals. Yeah, we are both mammals. The otter, me, you, all of us are mammals. So we're going to talk about what that means for an animal to be a mammal. See, mammals all have a few traits that they all share. And we're going to talk about how we can see those traits in these mammals. And we're going to talk about how some of those traits are what we call adaptations. So, an adaptation is anything on an animal's body or an instinct they have that helps them to survive. These are really great ways to look at animals and how they interact with their habitat, other animals, how they eat, how they live. So, as we're looking at what makes myself and my otter friend mammals, we're also going to look at some adaptations that we all have. So, I'm going to go to my document camera. So, here at the aquarium, we have a good way to remember everything that makes an animal a mammal. And to remember that, we use the word whale. That's WHALE. That E is a little below the text line. We'll move it up when we get to that E. So, when I say whale, do I mean every mammal is secretly a whale? No, that's not quite it. So, this word here, each letter stands for a trait that mammals have. Like I said, let's talk about it, and we'll talk about how we can see that in some different ocean mammals. So, the first trait we're going to look at starts with a W. So, that is that all mammals are warm-blooded. So what do I mean by all mammals being warm-blooded? I want you to imagine it's a cold day. Maybe it is a really cold day where you're at today. So you are in your nice toasty home, but you have to go out in the morning. So you walk out the door into that cold weather, and then you breathe really hard. What would you see in front of your face? I know, I usually see what looks like a cloud, maybe some kind of steam. So that steam comes from the inside of our body because the inside of our body is warmer than the outside temperature that we're existing in. So when we say an animal's warm-blooded, that just means its body can keep it warm. Another way to look at it is to think about some animals that are not warm-blooded. So what do you think to yourself? Do you, or maybe a friend of yours, or maybe your class, maybe you have some kind of pet reptile, a snake or a lizard? If you do, think about what is in their tank. What is there with them? They might have a bowl for water. They might have somewhere to hide. They might have some green stuff to nibble on. But a lot of times you'll also see a lamp. So that lamp is there because reptiles are not warm-blooded. So unlike us, they have to have that lamp there to keep them warm because they're only going to be as warm as the weather outside of them. So if they don't have that lamp, they'll get too cold and they'll get very sick. So they need that lamp. But us mammals, myself and my otter friend, our body does a great job of staying nice and warm. But otters and other mammals like whales, they have a little bit more of a challenge when it comes to staying warm than us humans do. Humans, we're on land. If we need to, we can go inside some kind of shelter. And that does a pretty good job of keeping us extra warm. But these animals live in the ocean where it can get really, really cold. So they have some extra adaptations that help their body stay nice and warm. Let's look at my otter friend first. What do you think could be on its body that helps to keep it warm? I wonder if Tina can show us a picture of a real otter. You see on my otter friend here, its body. You probably see all that stuff. You see all that fur. So for otters, fur is one thing that keeps them nice and toasty. We also see that in other ocean mammals like sea lions and seals. They also have body. Ocean mammal can stay nice and warm in the cold ocean. But I wonder if I can look at a picture of a whale or a dolphin. Let's see what they have going on. Oh, it's a great picture of a dolphin. So what do you see here? Do you see lots of fur? Yeah, I don't either. So they don't have that to keep them warm. But they have something else. It's something actually inside their body that keeps them nice and toasty. And that is blubber. So blubber is this really thick layer of fat that a lot of ocean mammals have. You see it in dolphins like these ones. You also see it in whales. And even seals and sea lions, they have fur, but they also have blubber too. So they're double protected. But anyways, this blubber is super thick. It helps insulate them. It keeps all that inside their body, and it helps keep the coldness out. Now, us, we also have fat in our body, and it kind of does a similar job, but it isn't nearly as effective as blubber is. If you look at blubber, it's a little bit darker than the fat you find in our body, and like I said, it is a lot thicker. So blubber is an amazing adaptation that ocean mammals have. When it comes to staying warm, our ocean mammal adaptations are fur and blubber. Let's go and look at my dog camera. Talk about the next thing that makes all these animals mammals. So the next thing that keeps them mammals starts with an H. And that H stands for hair. Excellent. So you can see on my head, I think I've got a pretty good amount of hair. We just talked about some of our mammal friends, how they have fur. So that counts too. That definitely makes them mammals. Our otters have very thick fur, and so do our seals and sea lions. But I wonder if I could look at another picture, maybe a whale this time, and see what we see there. Oh, this is a great picture. So this is a whale. Do you see any hair or fur on this whale's body? No, I do not. Just like the dolphin, I don't see any there. So how can we say that all mammals have hair if this whale, who we've already established it as a mammal, if it doesn't have any hair? Well, I want you to take a look at its mouth. What do you see on the top and bottom of its mouth? What are those little things there? They look like bumps. Do you think our whale friend is just having a really bad breakout, or do you think that could be something more? If you said you think it's a little something more, you are correct. So all those bumps are actually where hair used to be. You see, my whale friend, when it was very born, my whale friend is the same as all my dolphin friends. They have mustaches. on their face. And that mustache is really important. So what whales will do is the baby will use their little mustache and they'll swim up to the belly of their mom and they'll tickle her. And that tickling feeling tells the mom, oh, my baby is hungry. It's time to feed them. So when they're younger, they have hair, and that hair helps them do a very specific job. It helps them communicate with their mother to get food. But as they get older, they can start getting food for their own. Just like you or me. We can feed ourselves. We don't need our parents to help us all the time anymore. So the whale, once it is old enough to get food on its own, all those hairs start to fall off. But we still see those little bumps where the hairs were growing out of. So when we say that all mammals have hair, that means they had it at some point in their life. So even though our whale friends and our dolphin friends don't have hair over their body as adults, because they had it when they were babies, we can still say that they are definitely mammals. Excellent. All right, let's look at another part of our word. The next part is, oh, I'm misspelling my word. Next part is air. So what does that mean? When we say air, what we mean is that all mammals breathe air. So if you're like me, you've probably been breathing this whole time. I hope you have. So for us mammals who live on land, it's pretty easy to see that we breathe air. We're surrounded by it. That is how we stay alive. We have our lungs to help us do that. But what about our mammal friends who live in the ocean? So how can you survive in the ocean if you have to breathe air all the time? That seems really difficult. Well, the great thing is that all these ocean mammals, they have adaptations that help them overcome that challenge. So let's talk about a few of them now. I think one of the most interesting ones to talk about is found on our whales and our dolphins. It's right on top of their head, and that is their blowhole. So I wonder if Tina can show us a clip of some whales using their blowhole so we can see how that's done and how that helps their breathing. So we'll go, oh, perfect. Ooh, so we saw a beautiful blow right there. So you see it used its blowhole and it dived down. It's staying down there a really long time. Oh, and then we get another blow from this amazing whale. This is a really great picture. You get a nice image of what the blowhole looks like. So the way, let's see if we have a little more from our whale friend, and then I'll start explaining. And again, if you have any other observations, you might be noticing things I'm not noticing. So please feel free to text us at 562-286-1838. I love to hear what you're noticing. I love to hear what our scientists are seeing in these awesome clips. And I believe this clip in particular was taken right here in Long Beach, if I'm correct. Right. This is some great footage of our whales using their blow. So let's talk about it a little bit. So the way whales will use the blow is they will actually, when they have to breathe in air, they will go up to the surface and they will breathe in with their mouth. So their mouth reaches the top of the water and it breathes in. Then it will dive down and it'll swim for a long time. But then what do you have to do after you take a breath in? Breathe out, don't I? Same thing is true for our whale. So that is actually where the blow comes in. So after swimming for a long time, it will go up just enough that its blow can stick out. Oh, like we're seeing right there. And then it will breathe out. And now that might be confusing because to us, it looks like it's shooting water out of its head. Well, what it's really doing, like I said, is it's breathing out. It's shooting air out of that blowhole. But that air is pushing water up that's on top of the blowhole. So From our perspective, like I said, it looks like it's shooting water out of its head, but it's just shooting air, and that air is pushing water. So that is how our whales and dolphins breathe. They will breathe in through their mouth, swim for a very long time. They can't hold their breath for a while. But then when they need to breathe out, that is when they will use their blowhole. And blowholes are a really great way to find whales if you've ever gone whale watching. And if you ever want to research whales in the future as a young scientist, this is a great way to spot them, is finding where their blow is. So to talk about some other strategies that our marine mammal friends use, let's look at maybe a sea lion this time if we have some footage of them. Oh, perfect. So our other marine mammals that we've talked about up to this point, sea lions are being one of them, as well as our otters and our seals. They have a totally different strategy because they don't have a blowhole. So they're not going to be able to exhale the same way whales and dolphins are able to. So instead of just using that blowhole, what they'll do is they'll simply hold their breath. So they can hold their breath for a really long time. For our otter, we'll talk a little about our otter later. But sea lions and seals are really good at holding their breath. So our harbor seals, I believe, can hold it for about 30 minutes. Our sea lions, I want to say an hour. And the longest breath holder when it comes to these seals and sea lions is the elephant seal, who can hold it for 2 hours. So being able to hold their breath for a very long time is what allows them to go so far out into the ocean. So maybe this is a new word for you, but when we talk about animals that live really far in the ocean, a lot of times a scientist will use the word pelagic. So you might have heard of pelagic seals, and that is just talking about sea lions or seals. They're able to go super far in the ocean, and they're, like I said, they're able to do that because they're holding their breath so long. And they will have a typical migration pattern where they start off at a beach, they go really far, and then they come back. And a little later on, we're going to talk about what they're coming back for. So just keep that in mind. Now, I said we would address my otter friend. So my otter friend, he also holds his breath. But you know what? He's not quite as good as the seals and sea lions. I would say they can only hold it for about 7 minutes or so. So how are you going to live in the ocean? If you can only hold your breath for 7 minutes, you got to get your food. You're living out there, right? Well, otters take a very different approach. Can we look at Blue Cavern again? So we're going to look at my otter friend's home once more and try to see what we notice. So for our whales and dolphins, they live out in the open ocean. There's a lot of empty space out there. It can be very deep as well. And we've already talked about how our seal and sea lion friends can also live way out in the open ocean. But our otter friends, they live here in kelp forests. Does it look like there's tons and tons of space? Well, it might be more than your swimming pool, but it's not nearly as much as the ocean. And what do you see going all up and down? Do you see any kind of plants going up and down? Yeah, that is actually the kelp of the kelp forest. So this is an integral part of why otters are able to live in the ocean without holding their breath for really long, even hours, like seals and sea lions can. So what they will do is they will spend a lot of time floating on the top of the kelp forest where all this kelp grows and the excess kelp comes together and creates like a net. So that's where otters will float. They have a baby with them. They'll have their baby floating with them there. But then, when it's time to eat, what they're going to do is say, oh, it's a great image of that canopy. So they'll float up there. Instead of swimming for a really long time, they're just going to dive down to the bottom of the kelp forest, grab their food, and go way back up. You see, they don't swim very long distances like whales and dolphins, seals or sea lions, but they are great divers. So they'll start at the top, dive all the way down. They'll go down to the bottom of the kelp forest where they can find animals like urchins or abalone, sea stars, lots of really crunchy animals are on the outside, crabs maybe. So they'll grab those animals and they'll come right back up. And then they'll float on top of the kelp forest again, and they'll eat their food on their tummy. And that is how they're able to live in the ocean. Even though they don't hold their breath for very long, they just stay in the water for a very small amount of time, and then they come back up and they float. So we talked about how sometimes an adaptation isn't necessarily something on an animal's body, but an instinct. I think this is a great example of an animal using an instinct as an adaptation. So that is our whales, our dolphins, our seals and sea lions, and how they're able to breathe. Even though they live in the ocean, they're able to breathe air. So let's go back to our duck cam and talk about some more traits of these mammals. So we have our L next. What could that mean? So L here stands for live birth. All right, I always like to do a little poll here and ask everyone. Try to remember back, think back to when you were a very young child and ask yourself, did I hatch out of an egg? I don't think I did. Did you? Okay, cool. We're all on the same page. We did not hatch out of any eggs. So when we're talking about live birth, that's all we mean, is that when you were born, you were already fully formed, you were ready to go. You didn't have to hatch out of anything. Think of animals that do have to hatch out of eggs. Our reptile friends we talked about earlier. Birds, sharks are great examples. Sharks are a little tricky because sometimes the mother shark will have the egg in their body and the baby will hatch and then come on the mom's body. But they don't have other traits of mammals, so we still can't say they're mammals. But for the most part, when we look at animals that hatch out of eggs, we can say those are not mammals because mammals have live birth. Their young are born, ready to go. But let's think about that. If we give birth, we usually go to a hospital or on land. We try to create a really safe environment for that to happen. Do you think you'd want to give birth in the middle of the ocean? I would not. But that is what a lot of our ocean mammal friends have to do. Let's think about one of them. Let's think about whales. So I have two of my whale friends here. I have an orca and I have, I believe, a gray whale. So a lot of whales, when they're giving birth, like I said, they have to give birth in the water. Whales can't go up on land to give birth. So in order to create a really safe environment, what they will do is they will migrate. So a lot of whales will travel very, very far distances to find the perfect place for them to give birth. When we see a lot, I believe our blue whales that come through here in Long Beach, they stop near Alaska, and then they'll come all the way down, and they will go down to the lagoons in Mexico. Why would they do that? Well, let's think about some differences between Mexico and Alaska. Temperature is a big one. So it's a lot warmer here. Why would they be looking for warm water? Well, one of the reasons goes back to being warm-blooded. We talked about how blubber helps keep whales warm. But blubber doesn't form overnight. They have to develop that blubber by eating a lot. So when baby whales are born, they don't yet have the same amount of blubber that their parents do. So they wouldn't be as warm in that cold water up in Alaska. But when they come down to Mexico, they're going to be nice and warm in that very warm water. Another thing I mentioned was it wasn't just any part of Mexico, it was a lot of lagoons there. So lagoon is a part of the water. It's usually near a beach. It's a little shallower. It can be kind of closed off. And these are all great places for a whale to give birth because that shallow water means that the baby whale doesn't have as far to go to get air. Because we know they need to breathe air. Even as a baby, they need to breathe air. But if they're born really deep in the ocean and they have to swim all the way up, that's going to be a hard first breath. But if they have to swim a little bit, it's a lot easier for them to get their first breath. And then, like we said, lagoons being a little close off, that just protects them from predators. So one way whales will handle live birth is migrating to those warm, shallow locations. And like I said, you don't necessarily see animals that lay eggs spending this much time protecting their young. And part of that is because that's what the shell does. It protects them, lets them form a little bit. But for our mammals, you're going to see them spending a lot more time with their babies. So we've talked about what whales do to make sure their babies are born safely. Let's talk a little bit. Let's look at a picture of a seal or maybe some sea lions on a beach if you have it. Oh, yeah, but let's look at a seal. So what's one thing you notice that's different between the seal and the whales we're talking about? The seal is on land. Yes, so that is one thing that makes giving birth a little bit easier for our pinniped friends. That is what you would call animals like seals and sea lions. They are a little subgroup of mammals. So they can go on land. So that is where they will typically give birth. You might have seen, you see this a lot here in Southern California, especially around San Diego. You'll see a lot of sea lions all on the beach together. So we talked about why seals and sea lions will go way far in the ocean and come back, and that is because they are trying to give birth. So they will come back to the beaches, and they'll stay there. They'll stay there to mate, and then give birth. And once the babies that are born are grown up enough, they'll go back out into the deep open ocean. So for them, they're able to keep their babies safe by going on and staying there for a while until the babies are strong enough that they can go in the ocean themselves. And that's very similar for our otter friend. Otters will usually try to find somewhere on land to give birth, usually something like a den. Up near Alaska, I've heard they've used ice floes. So they'll try to give birth on land. And then otters, a lot of times, instead of necessarily staying there for a really long time, they will also have their babies floating in kelp with them. So we saw that amazing kelp canopy earlier. Keep their babies there. They might hold on to their babies. They might kind of wrap them in the kelp to keep them in place. So the mommy otter go dive down, get the food, and come back up, and that baby will be in the same place. We talked a little bit about otter fur and how it keeps them warm. One thing I forgot to mention, that otter fur is some of the thickest in the world, and in just this much fur, there's millions of hairs there. Well, that is doubly true for otter babies. So adult otter fur does a good job of keeping them warm, and it does a good job of waterproofing them. For baby otters, it is so thick that they can't even dive down into the water. So like I said, their mom puts them in kelp and tries to keep them in one place. But those baby otters, even if they wanted to, they couldn't dive down into the water until they start to get their adult fur. So that's another adaptation that helps these otter babies nice and safe. So we've talked a little bit about how all these mammals keep their babies safe, especially when they're giving birth in the ocean. And we have one last trait to look at, is our E, and that is eats milk. Well, you might find that a little funny. What do you mean eats milk? I drink milk out of a cup. Well, for our whales, to say that they eat milk is not too crazy. So whale milk is actually very, very thick. And if you were to look at it, it would look like pudding, in fact. And part of that is helpful because if you're already surrounded by water, having something a little thicker just makes it easier to get to your baby. And like I said, they have to build up a lot of blubber. So they need milk to be very rich and calorie dense so that these babies can build that blubber fast. So we can say our whales and our dolphin friends, we could definitely say that they eat milk. We can see mammals like us, other land mammals, cats and dogs drink milk, and the same is true for our ocean mammal friends. They drink milk, but they're not going to drink milk their whole lives, will they? So as they get older, they will start to develop adaptations that help them eat the food that is specific to their species. So for instance, a dolphin Oh, I have a dolphin skull I'm going to show you. A dolphin. An adult dolphin has teeth like these small teeth that help them eat fish and squid. Does a really great job of catching those animals in their mouth and keeping them in one place. But not all mammals are the same. In fact, even in the same family, you'll see a big difference. I'm going to show you something really cool. I'm going to show you some baleen, and then we'll wrap up. So baleen, you'll see this on bigger whales like humpbacks, blue whales. So this, instead of biting anything and chewing it like you might, like us humans might, or biting and swallowing like dolphins might, what this baleen does, it helps them get a lot of water in their mouth, and they're going to push the water out. And they're trying to keep the little creatures that are in that water. Those creatures are these guys, these little krill. If I can go to my document camera. Yeah. So they will use that baleen to eat these little kind of shrimp-looking things here. So as you can see, even though all of us mammals start out eating milk, they eventually start to eat very different things. And going back to that idea of adaptations, they will have adaptations to help them get that food. So I hope you had an excellent time learning about our mammal friends. I know I did. I hope you join us again for another Aquarium Online Academy. I have been Courtney. I want to thank my friend Tina. And again, if you want to send us any questions, you can email us at live@lbaop.org. Have a great day.